Hello, everybody. My name is Monique Janssens, and I'm very happy to present to you my research that I did at Erasmus University in the Netherlands. At the moment, I work at Utrecht University, and I will soon be working for the Dutch government. So my research is about animal ethics and how it fits into business ethics, or in other words, in corporate social responsibility. I will address three topics. The first one is animal ethics should be part of business ethics and corporate social responsibility, which is the normative part of my research. Secondly, that it is a blind spot of companies, which is the empirical, quantitative part of my research. And thirdly, that managers who are responsible for animal welfare can contribute to the paradigm shift, which is the empirical qualitative part of my research. So how did this research come about? Well, I've been looking into social responsibility for a few years, and one of the very important concepts there is triple P of John Elkington: people, planet, profit. So companies should not only look for profit, but make a balance between people, the planet, and the profit. And I was wondering all this time, where are the animals? And I was missing them. So yeah, I really think that is a problem, and I started to look into that problem. I have to say that the concept of John Elkington is from 1994, so of course it's not new. And a few years ago, he presented his new book, Green Swans, in which he says, yeah, well, maybe it's important not to talk about profit, but about prosperity. And of course, it's possible within that prosperity to think about animals. There's also people who say, well, the animals are in the planet, right? But that really is problematic because, there's so many animals who are not free living, who are in our barns, in our systems. So you can't say that when we look after the planet, that we immediately look after the animals as well. So in my view, and that was also a conclusion from the empirical part of my research, is that animal ethics and business ethics are worlds apart. They simply don't talk to each other. They talk about the planet and the people, or they talk about the animals, and that's animal ethics. And they hardly know of each other's existence. So the main normative question here is, do companies have responsibilities towards animals? And to answer that question, I looked into the three main strands in business ethics that are accepted in business ethics. And those are consequentialism, deontology or rights ethics, and thirdly, virtue ethics, which is sometimes seen as the capability approach, or capability approach is a form of virtue ethics. And all these three strands are very well accepted in business ethics, and they all have representatives that have argued that animals do have a moral status. So for consequentialism, or more precisely utilitarianism, this is Peter Singer. For rights ethics, this is Tom Regan. And for the capability approach based on virtue ethics, it's Martha Nussbaum. And they really are very much accepted, and they have argued, and I can't reproduce the argument here because of the time, but they have argued thoroughly that animals have a moral status and that they matter. So my argument is like this. First, animals have a moral status, plus moral actors have a moral obligation to take the interests into account of those with a moral status, and therefore moral actors have a moral obligation to take as well the interests of animals into account. So now we're talking about moral actors, but who are those moral actors? We know that most humans are, but an important point here is the question whether companies are moral actors. So my reasoning here is that companies are moral actors because they are constitutes of individuals who are independent, who are each of them moral actors. And this is argued by Isaacs in this book from 2011, Moral Responsibility in Collective Context. So Isaacs argues here that, within the company there are so many individuals, and all these individuals take a very small part in the total activity of the company. And all these small activities, they have a little part in what the company does. And so in total, therefore, the company as well is a moral actor as a group of people. So this is really brief, I know, but it's impossible to take the full argument here. But my conclusion is, and you can read it in my thesis, is that companies should take the interests of animals into account. So the answer to the question I just asked is yes, animals should take the interests of animals. Companies should take the interests of animals into account. Now you could ask, of course, does this hold for each company? We see here several companies that own animals, but of course there's also, oil companies. Let's take a packaging business as an example. Should they think of animals in this way? Should they think, our boxes, the cat should fit in this box, or no, or it shouldn't, or and this is of course a joke because it's not about boxes. But what I have seen in my research, which I did with Professor Muel Kaptein from Rotterdam Erasmus University, is that half of the companies we researched, which were the largest companies in the world, 200 largest companies in the world, didn't talk about animals at all on their websites, in their CSR reports, etc. So they are not aware of any responsibilities towards animals. But the other half, the other around 50%, they gave wonderful examples of how any type of company could take the interests of animals into account. And I will give you just one example, which I liked very much. There's this airway company that has an ethical code, and in this ethical code it says, we will not ship products related to blood sports. So that is a very small thing a company can do, but it shows that it takes responsibility for animals and that it sees the outcry of the animals in need, and that it doesn't want to contribute to animal abuse. So I think that is a wonderful example, and I think each company should think, what is our impact on animals? And there's another example I can give which holds for almost any company, and that is that they all have restaurants where the employees go for dinner or for lunch, and where there are so many products from animals. So they could look, could we offer more vegetarian or vegan or more animal friendly produced food there? So that's something almost all companies could do. And there's something else you could say, as a critic of our conclusions, and that is, well, we see so many supermarkets, for example, where this is an example of the veggie chef. So there's so many plant-based products, and you could say, well, they're doing their best. Well, we saw that as well, but it's only a small part of these 200. So what we did next was the qualitative research. I did this with another co-author, Floriet van Wezel, and she and I interviewed managers who are responsible for animal welfare in those companies that do rather well. And here we found this figure. So we talked to them. We did Well, actually, we approach them in three ways, which is called triangulation in qualitative research. It's important to have three types of data. One type were the interviews, the second type were the CSR reports, the CSR year reports, and the third one was their website. And when we combined all the data from this information, then we found three, let's say, headlines. And those three are leadership, partnership, and championship. On the left, you see the company, on the right, society, and the partnership is in between. And in the bottom, you see the supply and retail chain or the industry. So those are other companies. And well, what do these three concepts mean? Leadership, I think you know what leadership is. It's, being front runner, being the first to try things, being an example for others, being brave in a certain way, dare to try things, etc. Partnership is collaboration, so working together, and this partnership goes outside. It goes to the NGOs, the researchers, and the government, which could be partners, and also goes also to the bottom, where other partners in the industry could be helpful to work with. And then the third concept is championship, which goes outside of the the NGOs, the researchers, and the government. And actually here, the NGOs are involved because that's why they are in the top of the building. So you could work with the NGOs to show the outside world, the consumers, the public, the media, what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you're working for animals. So NGOs, they have animal welfare labels, they have animal welfare prizes, and if you work with them, there could be a certain form of championship, of reaching out to society to tell them together what you're doing. Now, this is, of course, about communication, and my partner, Floriet van Wezel, you see her name on the bottom. We decided to look a bit deeper into communicative drivers to do more about animal welfare or animal ethics. So that's the next figure, communicative drivers for animal ethics in food companies. So here we were zooming into food companies specifically. And again, you see on the left the company, on the right the society, and you see all these partners within and outside the company, and you see all these arrows. And all these arrows are communicative connections between partners. And there's a difference. First, you see the responsible manager. So our definition was the manager who is responsible for animal welfare, sometimes a quality manager, sometimes a real animal welfare manager. That was a bit different now and then. It's very important that this person is open, accessible, and sensitive. So that's on their T-shirt. Then you see the dark red arrows, and those arrows are communicative lines, channels between this manager and other partners. And they are rather obvious, when you talk to the employees, you can share information and insight and get information and insight from them, etc. I can't go through all the arrows, but I would like to go through the green ones. They are on the edges. And as you can see, those are communication channels where the manager himself or herself is not involved per se. So it's communication lines that the manager can set up for others. And I think that is important, and that is new in this research. So we looked into those, and I will give you a few examples. First, when we go to the left, you see that you can, as a manager, you can make the employees give more insight in the production chain and the production chain in the employees if you organize, for example, farm visits. Then secondly, if we go to the top, those adjacent departments, well, what are these? They could be marketing departments or communications departments. Those are other departments within the company. And as a manager, you can, for example, ask the communication department in there to add animal welfare topics into their newsletters to the employees. So that's why it's close to that arrow. Then if we go to the right, one of the adjacent departments we talked about with the managers was the marketing department. And of course, the marketing department can put information on in ads, on packaging for the consumer. So they can communicate about animal welfare with the consumer simply by showing it. And well, of course, there's the danger of greenwashing, window dressing, but on the other hand, what my research showed was that if you say you're doing it, nowadays consumers can keep you to do it, so they know that you are expressing yourself in that way, so then you have to do it. So sometimes the communication comes before the action, but then still the action has to follow. So this really can make a company more ethical towards animals. And oh, sorry, I skipped one. Yeah. So then there's this small Text Good Ag Award. This is an example of an NGO showing the public. So what we just now called what we just now called championship. So show the world that you are doing your best with animal welfare as a manager. The next one is the little YouTube video. So it might be difficult to make the consumers or the public communicate with the production chain. So that could be a little bit difficult. One example we encountered was open days on the farms, but then of course you reach some hundreds of people, not thousands of people. And another example we encountered were farmers who made YouTube videos, put them on YouTube in the stable, talking about how they care for their animals and how they do their best to do this in an ethical way. And then finally, the arrow on the bottom, and the production chain. Within the production chain, you can make people communicate with each other, just to organize, for example, round tables, make the farmers communicate about, practical solutions, ethical concerns, best practices, etc. So those were the examples of the green arrows. And our conclusion was that an animal welfare manager has plenty of ways to advance animal welfare in the production chain. So that really is an important conclusion. What we encountered a lot was managers who really did their best for animals, but who had a hard time, making it bigger in the company, because, there's always marketing or quality management who have their prices and problems to get it on the right shelf, etc. They have their own problems, but these are ways of making animal welfare more important within the company. So what are the actions for companies, which I call urgent actions, because I think it's really important that we start doing more for animals. First, incorporate animal welfare in CSR targets. So it's really part of CSR. It should be part of CSR, and please don't forget it. Secondly, take leadership. So don't be afraid to be a front runner. Take the others along with you. And thirdly, collaborate in animal welfare projects. So those could be partnerships with governments, with NGOs, etc. And the fourth point, communicate about it. So this is the championship, and the last model I presented more precisely how to fill in that championship. So if managers in companies should do all these things, yeah, we're really going to make a better world for animals, which I think is very, very important. So then we're going to make the animals, yeah, I think the fourth bullet in triple P, which should be, yeah, the fourth element there, and we're going to make some animals a little bit happier. Thank you for attending, and yeah, I wish you the very best, you and all the animals in the world.